if you were
Sorry,
vested.
not.
Test. That's
She's still working on it.
Jenny.
Yes.
You are live now, and the audio is working.
Thanks.
Good.
Where,
Oh, it's not. Yeah.
I don't,
Communication.
Do we have a link so that we can send it out?
Yeah, we're gonna send it to one of these.
If you guys just go to YouTube and go to Dot City Public Schools, we'll be live.
I can't find it right now.
It's 613.
Yeah.
25 negotiations.
It is still,
Yeah.
okay, I see it. I got it. I'll share it out. Thank you so much.
Perfect.
Okay. They got us up and running.
Okay. Good. Okay. So y'all have a salary proposal and something on supplemental which you wanted to share with this that we didn't get to.
Johnny, your supplement.
Yeah, we're gonna let Johnny speak even though he's not over here on supplemental.
All right, so I took the supplementals and plugged in how many people actually held those positions to get a total cost. And the raise proposed by the board of 3% totals out to $22,000, $22,050 to be more exact, but $22,000. And that's sharing among 212 positions. That's after 4 years. That's a little insulting, to be honest. I mean, how many years would any of you like to go without any kind of cost of living adjustment? I think it should be none or not for probably. Anyway, so the cost of living between 2021 and now, and I chose 2021 because that's when they were negotiated. That's when the raises were negotiated. It's when they first started with is 17.5%. And I realized that that's quite a jump from 3. So our counter proposal will be 9%. That's about halfway to where it should be for the same pay, but it's better than nothing.
So, okay, yeah, I understand that they haven't had adjustments maybe in supplementals, but there has been other raises.
Correct, but we're losing coaches to other districts who have both their coaching pay tied to the base and longevity, which is what we asked for.
I understand.
And so this is a far cry from what we asked for, but it's significantly better than the insulting 3%.
Okay, well, I wouldn't call it insulting.
If you hadn't had a raise for 4 years and then your employer offered you 3%.
Again, there was extensive study done on that to get it caught up. So
4 years ago.
if you have a cost in of the 9%, then you said 3%.
Yeah, the cost is $66,000.
Okay.
Which, in a budget of this size, that's still not. That's something the budget can handle.
So it'd be 9% on the current schedule, not any changes.
No, we're gonna keep the,
Okay.
yeah, keep the
Current
numbers
structure.
from there and just add 9% to them. So like the director of bands would go from 9K, 9,810.
Right.
So.
Okay, we hear it. So,
Then I think we'd like to talk salary proposal. Will you pull up,
Yes.
can you, since we have some people back there so they can see.
Oh, sorry. Yes. I'll take it.
It's up there, John.
Oh, sorry.
Making me walk today.
No, it's okay.
It won't reach back there. It's not.
I'm gonna move over here so I can see.
Do you want one?
Makes no.
John probably wants
The short answer is no. Oh, they didn't have this one. Okay.
It's not shared. Let me, it's, yes, it is. Let me just, no, it's not. Let me share it. Share it today. No, it's still up. You got your master first.
Okay, should be there.
Share it to you now.
Share it to me. To my school?
Yeah.
Okay. Just a verification, sorry.
To your Gmail.
what do we?
I'm trying to pull up the presentation.
Can you just go over it with us here?
Does everyone have a copy?
We got copies. The
I'm-
folks here today will have copies.
Okay.
That's who we're talking to here, so.
All right, so we just kind of wanted to look through everything and make sure we were all on the same page as we were talking about salary increases today. And on Monday evening, the classified salary increases were approved by the Board of Education. And so that's the first slide that I have in here. There was a COLA, cost of living. I believe Tony talked with Hammer about that. We didn't have it in here, but that was 500 and some people. But then you guys also did some compression adjustments with the understanding that modest pay raises had been given, and so we were trying to do some catch up. And that was a smaller amount of people. Instead of 500, it was just 229. But overall, classified staff did $1 million increase in their wages. And you had the rationale based on increased student funding for people. So that was kind of the first thing. So we've already done that for classified staff, so let's keep that in mind as we're moving forward with our certified staff.
You have a question? Okay. Yeah, we're not negotiating for the classified staff.
We understand
We're
that.
not.
The point is that you have already decided that for the classified, and we are using that as a factor in our request.
So again,
That's fine, but understand how it was broken down.
Right.
3% of that
is a COLA increase. The rest of it deals with compression raises and
Right.
market increase based on a 2-year study that has been done by an outside consulting firm that specializes in that. So, I mean, you can
Right,
say.
I'm aware of that, I was just trying to set the stage.
Yeah.
Okay, so then I wanna go right into the current reality of teachers in the district. Several people on the side of the table know that I am passionate about how are we recruiting and retaining teachers. So we have 27 teachers who have left the district, and I have it broken down. 22 have chosen to move other districts or professions, and 5 have retired at the end of the school year. We got a new hire list on Monday. 11 new people have been hired. There have been some transfers around the district. But of those 11 hired people, 1 is a librarian, 1 is an assistant principal, 1 is an instructional coach, which means only 8 classroom teachers have been hired. We currently budget for 450 teaching positions based on the teacher list that was provided, whereas that leaves us with 85 open spots that are going to be unfilled. And as everybody in this room knows, we don't just leave classrooms with no teacher. We either put a long-term sub in there, or at the secondary level, we have teachers teaching on plan time. We have elementary teachers having larger class sizes. So I realize 85 open spots. We don't have 85 open classrooms. I don't want anyone to think I am trying to say that, but we have 85 positions that we're not filling with a full-time teacher, certified teacher. Questions on that?
Do you understand though that we have to budget as if we have?
And do you understand that the burden of that extra work falls on the teachers of the district? By not,
On some of it, for sure.
yes, by not having those 85 bodies to do that job, that burden falls on the teachers.
Okay, well, that's a concern for a lot of districts. It's
And
shortage. So
that is very true.
we're all, so we hear you,
And making amends for that is an operational cost.
So the current proposal from the Board of Education, as I understood it from the last time we heard, is $51,180, which would be a $1,930 increase on the base salary, which equates to about 3.9%, if I understood it correctly.
I came up with a 5.52% based on this right here.
I'm just talking on the base, not on total money, just on the base number.
But I'm looking at total money because, let me say, if you don't do anything.
With all due respect, can she finish, please?
Yeah, no, that's very fair, I'm sorry.
So with that proposal, you were wanting us to add 10 minutes a day, which 10 minutes a day for 183 days works out to 30 and a half hours, or an additional 4.5 days added to the contract. Johnny was talking at the end of the last meeting how really when you're paying for those extra 30 hours, the raise isn't really $1,930, it's closer to $650 by the time you've paid for that 10 minutes extra time. But the total cost of $51,180 would be $1.6 million when you're talking all 450 positions.
We're close on that. We're within 100.
Okay, then keeping in mind that we have 85 open positions, which yes, we have to budget for, that's 19% of our teachers that we're budgeting for, but we're not really going to be paying them at the $51,180. They will be paid at the long-term sub rate, which you guys increased the pay on that to $225 a day on Monday. So a long-term sub who's there every day next year would make $41,175. So the difference is $10,000 by not having a certified teacher in the classroom. Times 85 teachers is approximately $850,000. So $1.6 million was the whole cost for 450 teachers, but knowing that they're not all going to be filled, yes, the intent is to fill them. I don't think that there's not the intent for that to happen, but we're not gonna get all 85 filled this year. So there is some additional room to move on this out there.
I would disagree with that. I'll let you finish.
So with that, like Johnny was saying with the supplementals, if you looked at a 4-year average, I just went back to 2021, like he had done as well with the supplementals, and using the inflation calculator from the U.S. Department of Labor, and using the CPI, a COLA or cost of living to make sure that teachers on the base were making $45,100 in 2021. For it to be the same dollar value at the start of this school year would have to be $54,175. That would be with no contract time added if we're really comparing apples to apples, not trying to add time. That is also needs to be compensated. And just like Johnny said, we're not necessarily asking for $54,175, but that is a far cry from the $51,180 that is on the table from your side with the added 10 minutes. So with all of that in mind, okay. So then the next one that we had was teachers versus principals. I know Sarah and I talked about this last year. This is from KSD Data Central, and teachers in a 10-year time period have only increased their salary about $2,000 in this district, 3.8%. And principals, and yes, I know there's a smaller pool of principals than there are teachers, but their 10-year change is $31,000 or 30%. So you're increasing salaries for principals at a rate of 30% over 10 years, but teachers are only 3.8%.
Can I ask a few questions? So since we're comparing ourselves to others, can you tell me where we currently sit versus these others in the region and the state based on salary, fringe benefits, including medical, dental, health, vision, extra duty pay, contract length as a total, the support provided within the buildings and the district, the opportunity for growth in the districts, and how their paid FMLA leave works?
I think this comparison is people who are in the district can also get those benefits.
But I want to know how we compare to the people around us and the people in the state. If we're saying that we're losing people to other districts because we're not doing this. People are leaving us because we're not doing this. So how do we currently compare?
People aren't leaving here for other districts, and nobody here at this table is saying that.
That was directly stated.
No, people are leaving the profession. Johnny, hang on a second. People are leaving the profession and people are leaving districts. That's not necessarily lateral movement unless, say, a family member goes somewhere. People are leaving the profession. This profession has abandoned its teachers.
I would disagree with that statement, and it's sad that somebody would say that.
That's a larger issue.
A larger issue, yes.
So our position is,
do you want to be
teachers here are paid very favorably. The schedule that you have now, the number of hours, work days, it compares.
Gaslighting 101. I love it. Oh, you have it so much better than everyone else. You
have
should
a
be
very
thankful
have
for
a
these crumbs
great country.
because you get more crumbs than the next guy.
I wouldn't say crumbs. I would say you have a very good schedule the way it is.
It
What I'm
is.
trying to say is.
And nobody is disputing. Nobody at this table is disputing that we are in a better place than some of our neighbors. The question is, as a profession, educators are disrespected. Educators are underpaid. You cannot find one profession in the United States that requires the education levels that teachers do.
Michael, that's a large.
I don't care that it's a systemic issue. I honestly don't.
Discussion.
Please do not gaslight me. I do not care.
I'm just trying to focus on what your proposal is here. Forward, so.
I also want to clarify that what I said earlier was coaches are going to other.
No, that's not even what I was referring to. And again, the point is, and I don't disagree with everything you're stating. And yes, there are some things that need to be addressed from a larger picture. I would fully support that thought. Again, it's just, we are negotiating right here, right now. And when we compare ourselves in certain aspects, then we need to compare ourselves in other aspects as well. And that's all I'm asking is the same thought that you want us to give, that you give as well when we talk about where we're currently at and what we're currently able to provide. And there's a lot of other things that go into providing that full contracted package than the numbers on the bottom line, so to speak. I completely understand that does not affect the dollars in your bank accounts. And yes, anything we can do to change or adjust that is sustainable long-term for the district. I believe we have set a precedent in this district that even though I get this and it's kind of difficult because you're kind of comparing apples to oranges to a certain extent because of the group size, but I think we have shown that we are willing and able to put money where it needs to be put to try to continue to lead the game when it comes to teachers and education and the pay for teachers. And does that mean that we can financially sustain going out there and saying, we're just going to flip this thing on its head and we're going to say, we're going to show how much we respect our teachers by paying them a $60,000 base, which we can't sustain in our budget? It just doesn't make sense to a certain degree. So yes, we will take it under advisement or take into consideration what your proposal is. And yes, we will sit there and crunch numbers and say, what can we financially sustain as a district as we move forward? And can we make this work or can we not make this work? And we will have a counter proposal, but I honestly just would appreciate the fact that we do understand that we have a very good contract and we try to take very good care of the teachers in this district, because sometimes that gets lost when we start fighting over dollars.
Can I, I just want to point out, when we were on the why teachers are leaving, 27 teachers, that, as I was going through the list, that number did not alarm me. That's way less than it's been other years that I've been on this committee and sitting. I didn't dwell on why people were leaving. I've left 4 districts. None of them were because I had bad experiences there. They were because of life situations. People leave for reasons that are way beyond what, just because they don't like Dodge City or just because I didn't like Salina Campus or whatever the case is. So I didn't dwell on that. I didn't compare us to any other outside districts. I am only looking at our numbers.
So when you're making a statement about people leaving as part of a salary proposal, is there a general assumption that there's a tie
I
there?
was just trying to make the point that we have these open positions,
Okay.
and that's going to fall to your 365 certified teachers to help those long-term subs, because
So
we don't
that
want
was
any
the
kids
action.
to fall
can
behind.
Make that tie.
Yeah, and no, that's what I'm
Because
saying.
I
So
have
that was
seen
the
these
action.
statewide survey data, that KASB partnered with KNEA and Emporia State. And among the chief drivers for the severe reduction in teaching staff was money.
Not in our district. I have that same data and we use that data for recruiting and retention, and Andrea was on that board.
And what I am trying to tell you is that, yes, I acknowledge, in fact, you were at the new teacher event that I was at last year, when I acknowledged to all of your new teachers that you have one of, if not the best pay scales in Kansas. Okay, so that question read to me as disingenuous because you know that we understand that.
Well, it wasn't.
Okay,
What
so
we are
we would hope that would be reflected in your proposal then.
What we are asking is for you to continue to be the leader, to set the bar high
Yes.
so that these other districts, the ones that you're concerned about, will follow your lead. And
if we can, we
it's a
will.
systemic problem, and you can. And the reason I say that you can, and I know you have a difference of opinion on this, some of us sat in a meeting with two of the state legislators. One is Mr. Getz, who is the head of the budget committee for education. He specifically told us that one of the reasons why they are hesitant, why Republicans in the state legislature are hesitant to give new money to schools and why they want to reduce the amount of money and the percentage of increase that come to schools is because districts are choosing not to spend all of their funds. Because districts are hoarding money. This is a talking point that is fed to them by KPI, and this is one that is shared widely amongst the state legislature, the people who decide how much money is coming into schools. And schools in Western Kansas were specifically pointed out as some of the most egregious offenders. And when I pull up your budget and I see that you have.
We're not negotiating a budget here, Michael. I mean,
There is a good explanation to that, though. I mean, I won't necessarily disagree, and I can share that whenever you're ready. So
And-
I'm not trying to interrupt.
And I do understand, and I hear that all the time, we're not negotiating the budget, but where does our money come from?
well, we've had.
Where does our money come
You
from?
can certainly look at it, base your proposals how you want to do it. Again, those are things that, we we gotta move on, we gotta get salary proposals here that are workable, that we can make happen.
And
So we want to try.
And that is what we are trying to work towards, and we are trying to.
Your salary schedule is very good. And again, we think whatever we can do to keep that, we're gonna do that, but we have to be realistic too. So go ahead, finish your.
Okay, so basically, the next slide is just the comparison of where the board's at, what the 54,175. We are fully aware that we probably can't get there this year. But we would like to ask you to bring a proposal back of what would you think would be, I don't want to say fair, but would be a reasonable offer to us. Knowing that the cost of living from 2021 would put us at 54,175.
So does that, and none of that includes any extra time built in or anything of that nature, is that?
Right. So if we're wanting to add time, then that number would have to be adjusted based on the hours that we would be including. And then I have the two supplemental proposals, the board's current 3%, and then what Johnny presented at the 9%.
So your last proposal was 52.5.
I'd like to clarify that. That was when we were discussing knowing and thinking that it was a different amount of money coming in. That was the conversation that we were having when we thought the 4.5 million and all of that was tied together before the clarification from the board. So,
But it did include 20 minutes.
20 minutes was included in
but that was when there was more going on than what we knew about. And yeah, we said for 20 minutes, but I'm going to tell you that after we talked about that and we took information back to our bargaining unit, people are not, this is not palatable to them, that 20 minutes.
Can I interject with 52.5 and the 20 minutes? Part of that proposal was also tying supplementals to the base. So if we want to go back to 52.5 and the 20 minutes, it would have to include tying supplementals to the new base of 52.5, which then these supplemental numbers would be different. They would be increased. That was also the increase of adding 2 additional days, because instead of adding 4.5 days, it had 9 working days. So we had requested that we increase the number of days, so it would be 7 personal and 7 sick. So if we want to go back to the 52.5, then we want everything,
Everything.
because remember that was the day we were talking whole packages. So we were trying to bundle everything together. So we're not going to pick that apart. If we're going to pick that apart, then let's start with salary.
So you're at 54,175 without any time, over $5,000 on base. Is that where you are?
So there are some things that we can do that are non-monetarily, like we had in that proposal we just talked about, adding the 2 personal days. Yes, it does cost money as.
Now it's a $5,000 raise and 2 more personal days?
No.
You're misunderstanding.
I'm saying if we go back to the 52.5, part of the reason we were able to kind of justify the lower salary at 52.5 was knowing that we would be compensated with additional.
And I think that it also included an extra day on our calendar off that we had requested as well.
Yeah, the President's Day and
President's Day.
codifying the
Language and leave.
I think we're.
And the removal
We
of-
need to caucus and
Yeah.
take into consideration the current proposal. I don't know that we want to try to go, we'll talk about the other proposal as well and those factors that were part of that first proposal when we were discussing it, so.
Yeah, because I have it was supplemental type of base, the contract, which we've already talked about for the teaching on 0 and that, adding leave as we presented it. So that means the percentages for the retirement was part of that and everything. And then the reoccurring holidays numbers, including the President's Day, and then.
Again, I get it, because we rejected a couple things in there that you're saying that proposal
That was part
kind
of
of
it.
went off the table. Now this is a new proposal that includes different things.
Well, we figured maybe if we had a starting point, then we could add to it. Does that make sense? Like if we want to talk adding additional time, then we can. But we tried to lump everything together and
That was the previous, yeah, so.
Okay,
Just so that you're clear, we're saying 54,175 is just like a COLA cost, is where, and we want you to come back to us with, something that you think,
We're saying treat that as a point of reference, not as our.
We get it.
yes,
No, we get it. And I
Thank you.
appreciate that comment at the end of there, Andrea. But I think we're to the point where we need to go have a discussion.
right, that's what we were hoping that we.
Conversation, and we appreciate providing this, so we have it to refer to. I'm gonna say 11 o'clock reconvene at this point, if that's okay.
or sooner.
Yeah, I mean, we'll take what we need, but
Okay, we going? So first thing I want to do is share with you time. So our last meeting, where we talked about, you know, 1 to 3 days on the 30 minutes, and you brought up some legitimate concerns about how that would work, supervision, some of the things that would have to happen. So, and we appreciate that, took that under advisement, and I think at this time we realize it's just not workable to add the 30 minutes for next year for that. So we're going to withdraw that piece of it. And instead of that, what we're proposing here is to form a task force, basically to really take a overview of the whole situation to see, okay, where do we compare? What do we need to do to meet our academic needs? Look for a way that would be workable, okay, to actually add the collaboration time that would be workable. So that would be our proposal on that, to form this task force. We would do this as a MOU, basically to look at that and understanding that it's probably not workable for next year. But we still believe it's important, and it would be a good use of time. It's just a matter of trying to work out the logistics, and we understand that it's not something that we're going to be able to do next year. So, okay, so that piece we're withdrawing on 30 minutes.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Okay, so this would be your proposal for that MOU?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
And look at, do the dates make sense? Again, that it's a proposal. And I was just trying to sort through in my mind, timing wise, and if we had a task force kind of working on that, when it would kind of need to be done in order for it to be brought to, for recommendation at bargaining time. Is it too soon? Do we have a little more time there?
Okay, so timeline actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
The,
Well, and let me ask another question.
Okay, sorry.
So you have January on there for the final report to the BOE. Would that be to give them time to vote on it, to consider it, and determine whether or not that's something you want to bring up in bargaining?
No, it's basically just informing the board as they get ready to prepare their letter for bargaining.
That's what I was,
Yeah.
sorry, that's what I was trying to ask. Okay, thank you.
Not necessarily vote on it, but
Well,
just make the decision.
I was making the option
I
that
get
the
you.
board votes on what you bargain. But thank you.
Okay.
Good.
we'll take that.
Okay, thank you.
And did you have a question? We'll look at,
We'll discuss. We'll listen to the rest of what you have.
Okay. As far as, again, where we came into today after last meeting, again, kind of struggling with your goal of your 54 or 52.5 or wherever you're at here. But again, I think last meeting, you agreed to drop the lead, stay with the 75. The other things, removing the PD day on the work day, you dropped that. The parent-teacher conference, PD, we worked that out, and a TA on that. We did agree to increase the pay for leave upon retirement to 125, remember, and the sick leave bank language that you worked out. Make that work. And then also the department, the team leads, we agreed to your proposal for 1 year with the sunset, right? So coming into today, again, we were looking mainly at what was open, salary, supplementals, and the number of minutes, as far as adding minutes. We're really what we're looking at here. Also understand you still want to codify the holidays and we want to do that. So is where that was at. So again, so where we are, folks, again, if our salary, again, appreciate everything presented, but again, we're not going to totally agree with everything how it was characterized. But certainly we hear you. But here's where we are. If you're not willing, on supplemental, I'm sorry, let me say supplemental. On supplemental, we would be willing to go up to 5% increase. So we were at 3, we would go to 5% increase to address that. As far as salary, again, if you're not willing to add any time at all, okay, we're going to stay with that 3% adjustment, COLA adjustment, which would put the base to $49,850. Remember, folks are also getting step and column movement. It's part of that. So it's going to be more than that raise on the base for most of your folks. I think you understand that.
Could you read that number again, please?
Yes, $49,850.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Now, again, we've moved on from the 30 minutes, but we would like to add the 10 minutes, okay, which would be 5 minutes before, 5 minutes after duty time. And again, we're willing to pay for that. And we would be willing to go another 5%. I'm sorry, 0.5%. Sorry, I made you a little nervous there. Sorry. 5.5. Hammer came out. 0.5%. So we would be willing to go to 3.5% COLA, which would take the base plus the payment for the 10 minutes to $51,450. Okay, so that would include the 10 minutes. Again, we're moved beyond the 30 minutes. Okay, that's not, we're going to talk about that anymore. And the 10 minutes, with the 10 minutes, the base would be $51,450. Without the 10 minutes, the base would be $49,850. So that's where we are, folks.
And obviously that 10 minutes would no longer be collaboration time. That would basically, the intent would be 5 minutes before the first bell, 5 minutes after the last bell, just as a duty day versus the instructional day, to have those things in place as students are coming in, and know that we'll have our teachers there at least 5 minutes before to greet them and send them on their way at the end of the day.
Well, some of us don't just send them home. I'm outside 10 minutes, 15 minutes, every single day.
We understand that.
And we not only understand, but appreciate that from this perspective. And again, we just never had that time built into a contract where, and that, again, that's kind of the reason why we want to take a full scale look into all of these things with a task force and hopefully find out where we can find that balance in the
So
future.
10 to 15 minutes after school, and usually 5 to 10, probably about 10 minutes before school.
And so you should appreciate the fact that we're trying to pay for those 10 minutes now that you're already doing. And most, I believe, would probably appreciate the fact that they're going to get paid for those 10 minutes that they're probably already doing.
Would you be open to knowing that teacher needs at different levels between elementary, like Melissa, having to take her kids out at the end of the day, would it be palatable, or would you consider that teacher duty time of 10 minutes being either, like Melissa might need to do it all after school and not do the time before, or like at the high school, if a teacher can't get there. I know there are some teachers who get to the high school an hour early in the morning. Could they do their whole 10 minutes before school and then leave right at the end of the duty day? Would you be acceptable to allowing that 10 minutes to be in one chunk of time, as long as it is?
Yeah, I mean,
Workable though.
I think it's yeah, I mean, yes, we want to be flexible. I mean,
Right, I was gonna say, I heard that word a lot in the last
Yes.
meeting, flexible, so I'm trying to think, how could we make this palatable for our teachers to get it ratified and passed? Like,
you know, I want it to be flexible, but I also don't want us to create a bunch of management for people in the process as well. So, give me, let's keep moving and let me think through that for a few minutes, just to process what that
I
might
could
look
share
like.
some like personal, like I know of this teacher who does this, but I wouldn't.
No, I do too, and I know
But-
sometimes it deals with dropping kids off when daycare's open in the morning and
Yeah.
having, and I heard some concerns about, so now we're gonna be able to like fire a teacher for not being there 5 minutes before the bell, that's not the intent. The intent is to try to have an established time frame so we know, like, here's the duty day, here's the instructional day. But I'm just trying to, again, Tara, think through this for
Yeah.
5 minutes or so, what that could potentially look like at different levels.
And I think we're wanting to caucus on these offers anyways, so I wanted to put that out, so while we're looking at things, you can also be thinking
Okay.
about something,
Thank you.
rather than come back and say, well, what about this?
Okay, I appreciate that.
I just want to make sure I have the number correct. So without adding time, you're saying that the base would be 49,850. Currently, it's 49,250, right? Did I have your number correct? Okay. Lunch will be coming here.
Okay.
So about 11:30, I think you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it should be about 11:30. How much caucus time do we need?
At least
Caucus
15.
and lunch.
About 15 minutes.
Okay,
Yeah, 11:40.
okay, come back, we'll come back at 11:40. That'll work.
Sounds good.
The coaches have that one book to use, so you guys might need to talk to her about a different one.
Well, we can let you go to the SUPS conference
Okay, so we looked at the proposed MOU and we would like some small changes. The first small change is that we would like to modify the number of teacher representatives to balance out the number of non-teacher representatives and do like try to ideally have one teacher from every building and then have at least two, a requirement of like, if we have 2 elementary, 2 middle school and 2 high school representatives, then that's enough of a balance to go ahead and do whatever work is needed for the, for that day. Does that make sense? Kind of like that's a quorum.
It does, but my experience with committees is the larger they get, the less gets done, because all of a sudden, not everybody can show up.
And I understand that, but when you have 3 administration from the district office, 2 principals and 1 board member, that is
No, I'm
already.
not saying that but going for 1 representative in every building, that means we just added 9 more people from the elementary buildings.
So,
So what if it was equitable? So there's
100%.
Because
Like
there's the 3, the 2, the 1, and 1. So if we were to, I
have
don't know,
6.
yeah, 7 would make it equitable.
Yeah, I mean, again,
7 instead of 3.
Yes.
I don't know if the facilitator, that's counts or not, is it?
Well,
It's
and
important.
again, it depends on the role of the facilitator.
Yeah.
So, and.
well, but again, if you're just talking, because again, the Board of Education member is there only to have an idea of what's going on in the process so they can inform the board appropriately, and make sure that the board understands what conversations are occurring. So again, really the balance from that perspective that you're seeking, from my perspective, is between administration and teachers. So if we balance, again, they're making recommendations to begin with.
Right.
And so it's not like the committee is being, or the task force is being charged with making a decision. So as long as there is equitable representation from the different levels and from the teacher perspective, I would
5.
even, again, my concern is if it gets too big, nothing ever gets done. And so
2 elementary,
The
2
board
middle.
member, I'm sorry, board member's intimidating.
We're saying, try to be as equitable as we can with 2 elementary, 2 middle, and 2 high school. 2, 4, 6. That way, because
I'm not trying to limit it. I'm just saying we just got to be cognizant. And again, the board member piece, they may say thanks, but no thanks. So it may not even be a thing. So
then we have one other request about that is that since we would be asking teachers to do important work outside of their normal duty, that it's either, if it's an after hours meeting, they get paid for that, or it's done during contract time, so that they don't have to have that extra pay added.
let me, I'm trying to think of how we handled, you all remember how we handled those other, like the kindergarten
They got
task
paid.
force and things like that?
They got
They
paid.
did a timesheet.
Yeah, but they got a
And
time.
there was pay for that, correct? Okay, so yeah, we would follow that same precedence.
Okay. Then we're okay with those changes.
One more thing, and this doesn't really change the scope of it, but I think 613 needs to have a representative in that committee just for, again, similar to the board representation. They have employees in our district and kind of need to be in tune with what is going on within the developments, because we affect their employees as well when we make those decisions. So literally just thought of that when I was walking in the door and talking with Jason.
One
Like a
613
teacher?
administrator and one 613 teacher, or
Just a 613 represent, again, they're just there to know and understand what is going on with those meetings.
So instead of 6 total, do 7 because we're adding the 613 person from the teacher side. Like
I-
a special ed person or,
What are your, and again, normally I wouldn't do this, but
yeah,
are
it
you
does
good with
affect them.
that?
I do appreciate your willingness to accommodate that. I fully support it. I don't think it would make sense for 2 additional 613 people. I would rather be a 613 teacher to join that discussion because they're the ones who are ultimately impacted directly. So thank you for that consideration.
And we can support that.
Definitely. So that would be 2 elementary, 2 middle, 2 high school, and 1 special ed. Okay,
That takes it to 7
to
total.
the 7 total.
Okay, back to money.
So we're in agreement with that. and
I
we'll-
think we're good with that, yes. Yes.
All right. So we would like to, counter propose, for the supplementals instead of 5%, 6%. That kind of meets halfway between where you guys started at 3, where we started at 9, right now at 6. That would bring the addition on the supplemental raises to 44,100. If our numbers are correct, which we're confident they are.
You got the numbers for him.
Right.
And they match.
So for supplemental, we would kindly ask that we go to 6% on that. And then on salary, we have 2 for you to consider. Both would be with the addition of the 10 minutes, as long as it is flexible, either being before school, after school, whatever the teacher's needs are. So with that understanding, just adding the 10 minutes, 52,250 as the base. If 52,250 is too out of reach, we propose 52 even and add the 2 personal days, so we'd be at that 7-7 split. Just went crazy.
Okay, so 52,250 with the 10 minutes. Or 52 with 2 personal days going to a 7-7.
And the 10
And the
minutes
10
still,
minutes
but
on
it's
that
all
one too.
flexible.
Both have the 10 minutes.
Correct.
Flexible too.
Okay. Okay. Any questions?
All right, but that also included a 6% on supplementals too, on both of those?
Yes.
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 That takes care of everything. Right, that's pretty much it.
Does that take care of everything? I don't know, I was kind of just leaving money.
Other than, I know we would have to hash out some, we definitely have the conversation about one thing that came to light of when we were talking about when we bring it back to the negotiations table, and it's just a number.
On the sick leave bank,
Yes, on the sick leave.
we're at 300, is it?
That number is really actually.
Out thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You get there pretty quick.
Yes.
Yeah, we started with 350 last year by the time we had donations and were donated, so I don't think 300 is a realistic.
But
You get there pretty
so we kind of know because of other experiences about some have like 700, some have more than that. And we were thinking a reasonable in between maybe is bring it back when it hits 500 instead of 300.
I think.
Again, the whole point is just when has this gotten so big
Right.
that we can sustain a year
We didn't think that would,
without making a call, so.
Exactly.
we didn't think it would be a deal breaker, but we want to be transparent.
Yeah, I've looked at that too. You get to 300.
Mhm.
Yeah, we started, like I said, right at 350 or 351, something like that.
Yeah, and that was all numbers I was just throwing in my head with
But it's
how.
actually at the end of the, the
Right.
number we're looking at is at the end
End
of the year, not at the beginning of the year. So getting that number to 350 at the end of the year, good luck. Getting it to 350 or to 500 will never happen.
Well, but
It
my
won't.
concern was if we were at 350 at the end of the year, and then we didn't do a call for days at the beginning, we would run out and we would be having to ask for a
Another
call
No, that
in
makes sense.
April or
That makes sense.
So I didn't want to cut ourselves short and set us up for failure in April and May when people don't have leave to donate, but there's still people in need. So
I
that
just don't
was,
think it'll be an issue, honestly. At 500, I don't know that you'll ever make it through a year, ever, and have close to 500 days in there. I mean, maybe 15, 20 years from now,
right.
but it won't happen anytime soon because we are skating through with 80s-ish at the end of the year right now, even starting with 350.
Yeah,
So-
I know. But I didn't want people to hear, hey, you guys said if there was 350, we would do a call for days.
Gotcha.
Like I said, we get to April.
Appreciate that.
Okay, anything else then? That's,
Did we have
Not necessarily a bargaining issue, but it is.
Yes, it is.
Um,
Very aware of it.
Yeah, it could.
Have been for a while, so
The concern is that it may end up being a bargaining issue because it does impact the members financially. And so as long as we've got some assurance that you're working on it, which she told me you are, I think that's. fair.
I am. Thank you.
okay. All right, thank you.
You guys caucusing?
Yeah.
How long?
Yeah, sorry.
No. See you next time.
Everyone out for dessert.
Going out for
Lock the
dessert.
door anyway, out.
Okay.
10 minutes?
Grab the
10?
pieces.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, we're, thank you.
Johnny, will you care? Yeah.
Guys,
Awesome.
under there.
And they're just went, oh, look at this.
I was like, oh, I didn't
know
do
that
that
was
before.
Thank you. Was that?
We're back online.
Ready?
Okay. All right, thank you all. So here's where we are. I think maybe you wanted to clarify on the MOU, we're good, but just clarification.
Yeah, so I just want to make sure as I made the recommendation to bring in a member from 613, because I think it's important that they understand what conversation is going on at 443's level. But that is literally just somebody there to take that information back to 613, not really participate in what we're trying to accomplish from the 443 perspective.
We had the
So what do you
opposite
call that,
perspective. The perspective as we discussed it was we want them to be able to provide input on how it will impact them because they have their contracts hold them to the host schedule.
And again, so that would be the concern from this perspective is obviously their biggest concern and only concern would probably be we're giving up time and we're not going to get paid for it. That's not what that's not our position with that particular, like they're not part of our bargaining unit. Obviously, we have to be aware of it. We want them to be aware of it, but we have to look at all of those aspects and make sure that we are doing the things we need to do for our students and providing the opportunity for possible growth and teacher collaboration and all of those things. And so, yes, we want them to be in tune with that. We want to know how that affects them. We want to hear those things, but in the grand scheme of things, we've got to make sure that we're committed to doing what's best for the students in this district.
To be fair, I don't mean to interrupt, but to be fair, aren't their students our students?
Yes, absolutely.
I mean,
And that's what I'm saying.
But so I think though that that perspective is also theirs. I think.
No, yes.
Including them is important.
And I'll say, I've already kind of looked at the other districts and we had this conversation a little bit prior. Even when we were asking for the 30 minutes, I looked at all of the other districts in that interlocal to see where their current contracts were. And even adding some time, we would still not be the district that has the most minutes per day in the contract at the 30 minutes that we were requesting. We would actually still be on the lower end of the other contracts in that interlocal. And so again, I want to make sure that we go into this again, knowing that that's going to be a concern. We get it. And we will be cognizant of that, but it can't be the thing that keeps us from moving forward.
So I'm proposing that we put it as 7 people from the teachers, but that instead move it back to the 6 from the teacher side and put the one special ed the same as the board member, like just call them an ex officio.
Yes. That would be the request, and I had that conversation with Jason coming back in as well.
And we do not see a problem so long as if you guys are okay when we, as a teacher group, if we decide to caucus about something or talk about something, that they are also allowed to be included in that, just like a board member would be allowed to be included with you guys.
Yeah.
Okay.
And again, the group's going to make recommendations ultimately anyway, so that there should be that communication and there should be that understanding from that perspective. I'm not trying to stop that. I just wanted to, again, concern from this side, and that was a concern, and so I appreciate you listening to that.
Do you have any?
No. Okay. That was my, just put them as
Ex officio, I like.
Both mark the board member and the special ed 613 person as ex officio. If that's how you say that. I'm terrible at pronunciation. That's why I don't teach ELA. Ex officio.
Yeah, I mean,
Very
that's really the reason. It's just to allow them to see what that perspective is and hear those conversations and
I
Be
don't
able
think
to
that's.
report back.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Okay, so with that, here's where we are, folks. Talked a lot about it, and in order to get a deal, here's what we're willing to do. Okay, we would offer the base to go to 51,450. Okay? 51,450, that's 2,200 on the base. We would go to 7% on the supplementals. Bump that up just a little bit. And then on the 10 minutes, we hear your concerns about workability. At the elementary level, we're good with it being 10 minutes after school. At the secondary, we still needed to be 5 and 5 to make it consistent and workable. So, and then with that said, the principal always has the authority or the flexibility to work with the teacher on a case-by-case basis as needed. So
You said the 10 would be after school at the elementary?
yes, correct,
Thank you.
correct, yes. And again, I think mentioned the 500 on the sick leave bank. I think we were good with that. So with that, that can get us a deal, folks, and we feel like that's a very good offer based on everything that's happening in this district. We hope you will accept it. So.
No, so pretty clear. I think we'd like to take about 10 minutes.
Okay. Very good.
Which room do we want to use? Are we able to use the room?
Yeah,
upstairs?
we stayed out of that student conference room for you all. If you want to use it, it should be unlocked.
Guess what? I have my stuff sprinkled everywhere. I gotta go get the cup, but then I'm gonna.
Okay. Johnny, do you want to mute that?
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
We're good.
Okay. So, after discussion at this point, the team feels that the district has not moved enough. This offer is far too similar to the last offer. We gave you a few options and we were optimistic that you would take one of the options or at least come closer to meeting it. Looking at it, in light of the money that the district chooses to give other parties that we don't bargain for, and we understand that we don't bargain for them, also paired with the fact that Dodge City is one of the most egregious offenders in terms of not spending the money that's available to them, choosing to budget for a $74 million increase, $74 million surplus this year. It is, at this time, we don't think that it's going to be ratifiable. We would like to suggest a recess. We still have time available on today's schedule if you would like to recess and get back with us. Otherwise, we would have to reconvene, and our next available opportunity to reconvene would be in July.
Caucus for 5 minutes. It won't take long.
The other issue on the time, the 10 minutes, they were pretty firm that needs to be teacher discretion.
Okay, thank you.
back.
Okay, so thank you. We have reached our limit, folks. We have nowhere else to move. We feel like that we've made a very good offer, and at this time, we have no more room to move. Understand that choice not to accept that, but we don't think there's any reason to meet any longer today. And we're ready to move on to the next step, which is going to impasse.
So to be clear, you're asking to go to impasse at this point?
We have nowhere else to go at this time, and we're ready to start that next process. So,
Okay.
yes.
If that is what the district wants to do, then that is what we will do.
The district wants to settle.
The district doesn't want to settle because we told you the pathway to settle.
Well, we gave you what we believe is a very good offer. That's not acceptable. We have nowhere else to go at this time. So, okay.
Anything further? Okay. Well, thank you.
Okay, thank you.